Okay, so it's January 2021 and we're in the middle of another COVID lockdown, which I know for many of you is very frustrating, not being able to get out, certainly not being able to get out with your ADI and continue your driver development, and not even being able to practice with your parents. And as a parent, I too have found that equally frustrating. However, I would say that last weekend I read a report from Somerset where an ambulance, and in fact a fire engine as well, had slid off the road while responding to a road traffic collision, and so they hit some ice, and two vehicles, emergency services vehicles, slipped off the road. So that did sort of bring home to me the importance of the sacrifices we're all having to make. So what I thought it would be useful to do is, rather than focusing on the negatives of what we can't do at the moment, let's look at the positives and look at what we can get on and do. And there are a couple of things that we can do and practice without actually moving the car. So, and this is actually, COVID lockdown aside, this is actually something I recommend my pupils do anyway. And they do practice these two elements of car control statically. And it's quite noticeable that those who take the time and do this training and this practice in between their normal driving lessons make far better progress and often get to a higher level standard of driving than those who don't. So take this opportunity while it's there. Don't just get frustrated by it. So the two things we're going to look at today are steering technique and also gear lever shift technique. So two fundamental elements of car control. So if we start and have a look at our steering technique. So to be clear, the highway code and the DVSA's driving essential skills aren't particularly prescriptive on the technique they require for steering, other than a number of key points. They would like you to place your hands on the steering wheel in a position that is comfortable for you and gives you full control of the vehicle. So that's clearly what the examiner will be looking for, that you're in control. They want you to keep your movements smooth and steady, and that at that point is crucial for car control. So as you start making jerky inputs with any of the controls in the car, you destabilize that control. They would like you to turn the steering wheel to maneuver around a corner at an appropriate time. So the timing of your maneuver is obviously quite important. And then for maximum control, you need both hands on the steering wheel. And so to that end, they suggest that you select an appropriate gear before starting your turn. So then we're linking in the timing of our gear change to the timing of our steering. But that really is about as far as the DVSA go with their guidance. Though what they do say on page 165 of the essential skills, which I'm sure you'll all have read in detail, they refer you to, for more information on steering techniques and cornering techniques, they refer you to Roadcraft. And the latest edition of Roadcraft has just been published. That came out in October 2020, so this is the latest version of that. If you're going to get a copy, that's the one you want to be getting. And if we look at pages 120, 121 and on from there, they refer to a steering technique called pull-push steering. They also, another technique within Roadcraft, rotational steering would be the other technique, the other recognised technique, which would be is referred to in Roadcraft. But pull-push is the primary technique that would be taught. And it for very good reason, that it's obviously the people who write these type of books take driving very seriously and have evaluated it in great detail. And pull-push steering has been recognised as being the safest technique for progressive road driving. So clearly, police drivers probably drive quicker than anyone else on the road, and they need to do that. Not only do they need to drive quickly, they need to drive safely as well. So it's that combination of progressive, safe driving which leads them to arrive at pull-push steering. So if we're going to teach any technique, pull-push would be the one that I teach, and so that's what we'll come on and have a look at now. The other key thing, the other key line from Roadcraft is don't let the wheel spin back on its own. So as it said, as the DVSA say, they want you to have be in control of the wheel at all times, so letting it spin through your hands is not something that would be desirable in normal road driving. So that's a bit of background. We'll now go on and have a look at pull-push steering in a bit of detail and how you can then practice that. Okay, so to practice this technique, you will need the car's engine running. So you have the benefit of power steering. Obviously, when the engine isn't running, the steering is quite heavy, and so it would be hard to practice this technique without the engine running. So firstly, check that you are somewhere safe and legal to do that. If you're not accompanied, you obviously need to be on private land, and depending on your level of previous training, you need to be sure that the car is properly secured and out of gear, so you know you're safe. So take your accompanying driver to help you start that. And again, normally it's not good practice, as we know, to leave a car idling, so it's not something we normally do for an extended period. However, in this period of COVID lockdown, where cars aren't being used regularly, to avoid flat batteries, we really don't want to be starting the car for brief periods of time. So maybe combine your practice of the steering technique with, if you're not moving your car, run it for 20 minutes, and that will offset the energy you've taken out of the battery from using your starter motor. The 20 minutes of practice will give the alternator time to recharge your battery, but just be aware of that, particularly in this lockdown time. If you're just doing 5-10 minutes, you're likely to do more harm than good to your battery. So we will start the engine now. Check we're out of gear. And as we can see, the steering wheel becomes very easy to rotate. So it doesn't need, see, one finger. It doesn't take any great degree of effort to move the steering wheel. And it's worth remembering, because normally, just again to be very clear when we're describing this technique, for the purposes of practice we're going to do it, but normally we wouldn't rotate a steering wheel when the car isn't moving just slightly. It's called dry steering, and whilst I'm only exerting a finger's pressure on it, it's the power assistance of the car is actually putting out huge turning forces on the wheels, so we're scrubbing those rubber tyres and all the steering linkages by the power assistance of the car. So normally we want the car to be moving to avoid doing damage to your tyres and other mechanical components, but for the purposes of practice, short periods of practice, we're not going to be doing any harm. So the first thing to understand is what's called the normal hold position. And as you can see in the steering wheel, most steering wheels will have some indentation here. So normally you'd place your hands either at the 9 to 3 position, which is what this steering wheel is really designed for, and or if it's more comfortable, slightly higher, sort of a 10 to 2 on a clock face. If this is 12 o'clock, a 10 and 2 or a 9 and 3 position. That would be your normal hold. Generally, a lot of discussion on this, certainly from an off-road perspective, but generally I think it's preferable not to loop your thumbs through the steering wheel. In the unlikely event that you were to hit a curb or have some sort of collision and the wheel is turned violently and your thumbs are through there, you can be doing damage to your hands, so it's preferable just to grip it, but with the thumbs on the face of the wheel, I would suggest that there is some discussion on that point. But as long as you can reasonably comfortably grip the steering wheel with a slight bend in your arm, having adjusted the seat correctly, that's what we're looking for. Now, in normal driving, gentle bends, we keep our hands in that position, and in normal road driving, making gentle turns just like that, so it's a fixed grip position. But as you can see, if we use this red line marker, the 12 o'clock marker, to give an indication of how far we've turned, that's fine, up to sort of 90 degrees of turn. That's reasonably comfortable, and that's adequate for most open road driving. But if we get a more severe bend and we start to turn, anything beyond sort of 180 degrees, as you can see, your arms very quickly get crossed up. And so you will see, so the other technique that's described is rotational steering, which we're not going to describe now, but there are techniques to deal with that. But ideally, getting to that position in road driving is not a good place to be. If the bend then continues to tighten, you have very few options. So the technique we use is called pull-push steering, and it's called that very simply because we start the technique with a pull, and if additional steering lock is required, we then add some push. So for example, if we were going to turn this car to the left, we will bring our left hand to the 12 o'clock position and grip it there. So that's gripping reasonably firmly. I'm loosening my grip with my right hand, and then I pull down nice and smoothly and meet. My right hand mirrors that, and then we meet at the bottom. Now, if we need additional steering lock to be winding on here, the right hand then firms up its grip, the left loosens its grip slightly, and I push with my right hand, and my left hand mirrors the action to meet the hand then at the top. And if we needed even more steering, which should be quite unusual, we would then pull down again. And now, just by those movements, the car is at full lock, so it will go no further. That's the maximum steering lock. So on this car, from lock to lock, so from turning the wheels all the way to the left to turning them all the way back to the right, is 2.5 turns of this steering wheel. So to get the wheels, if the wheels are now full left lock, to get them back to centre, we have to unwind, first of all, 1/4 of a turn. So from this 9 o'clock position to 12 o'clock, so that's 1/4 turn, and then we need to do one more complete rotation, so the red will come all the way around. So if I take my right hand there, pull, push, and the wheel is then back at the straight ahead position. So as you can see, using the pull-push technique, we now go to turn to the right. We place our right hand at the 12 o'clock position and pull down. That's half a turn. The left hand then pushes up. That gives us one complete rotation. All we've got left is 1/4 turn, and we've got nowhere further to go. So this is why pull-push steering technique can very quickly wind on lock and equally unwind lock. You also have the ability to move the wheel in either direction at any time during the steering process. So the objective is that neither hand ever crosses the 12 o'clock position. So we pull down, meet it at the 6, push up, pull down. If you want to come back the other way, pull down, push, pull, push. Key point to make with pull-push steering, it's often misrepresented, and it's described as wheel shuffling. So where people take short shuffles of the wheel, and that isn't the intention. So these should be nice, as the DVSA's guidance said, these should be nice smooth strokes and smooth long strokes. So we'd come up and smoothly pull it all the way down, smoothly pull it. So these are long flowing motions, similarly coming back. So pull, push, pull, push. Again, if you're ever in slow maneuvering situations, if you're ever unsure where your wheels are, you wind it to full lock. In this car, we would know we have to come back 1/4 of a turn and then one complete turn, and our wheels will now be in the straight ahead position. Now, when you first start this technique, it's one of those techniques which people often say it's a bit like, patting your head, rubbing your tummy. It does feel a bit odd to begin with, but very quickly, if you put the time in a static situation like this and you practice, you can very quickly become quite proficient at it. And the great thing is, say for normal driving, that's about all you will typically need. But if you've trained pull-push and it becomes your natural go-to style, on that dark rainy night when you've misjudged the severity of a bend and you get halfway round and you need some more lock, it gives you the option to do that. Whereas if you're stuck with a fixed grip, you've got nowhere else to go, and that's when you start sliding off the bend rather than going around it. So that's the theory of pull-push steering and a quick demonstration. What we'll do is we'll swap over now and let Caroline have a little try and see how we get on with that. Okay, so Caroline has had quite a few driving lessons now, probably what, about 10 lessons, something like that, out on the road. So she has done quite a bit of open road driving, so this isn't her first time at pull-push steering, in fairness. And as I say, don't be surprised to begin with. It can feel a little bit odd, but do persevere with it. Refer back to this video and to see what you're aiming for. But if you'd like to have a try now, Caroline, so if we want to make a turn fully to the left, so we pull down and then push up, pull down, push, and then if we want to come back the other way, right hand goes to the top, that's it, pull down, push up, pull down, all the way back round, keep going, full lock. Excellent, you can go no further. Okay, so left hand goes to the top, we always start with a pull, that's it, good. And that's really all you need to do. Just go full lock to full lock. Keep practicing that statically on your drive, just like this, until that becomes a natural motion to you. Key things, as we said, we want to make our steering inputs very smooth. So when we start off, it's a very smooth and gentle input. What we don't want is harsh, sudden steering, and I'm sure you've felt it, but as soon as you make it harsh, the car starts to rock on its springs and you're actually destabilizing the car. So everything we're looking to do with driving, our inputs should be smooth, and that keeps the car nice and smooth. Okay, so that's pull push steering technique. If we just switch the engine off now, Caroline. The other thing we're now going to have a look at, the second area which you can also practice in combination, is your gear changing technique. And it is, for changing gears, it is important that we have the engine switched off at this stage. But as you can see, this would be a typical gate pattern for the gearbox. And so if you look at the top, the only variable you tend to get is the location of the reverse gear. On some cars it will be forward here next to fifth gear, on other cars it will be up here next to first gear, and in various other locations. This car has a small lift up collar to prevent you taking reverse gear by mistake. So just familiarise yourself with the pattern, but the forward gear pattern is pretty standard. Key thing to understand is the gear selector moves in the lines as shown. So we must, if we were going to take first gear, we must come across along this line and then push it forward. We can't go diagonally to first gear, that doesn't work. So what you're trying to do is follow the lines in the grid pattern that's shown. First thing to understand with the gearbox is that it's sprung loaded, and it's sprung loaded to go back to this position between third and fourth gear. And Caroline, can you remember what that was called, what that position was called?
Neutral.
Good, yeah, that's the neutral position. So if we were to start the car now, which we won't, but if we were, the car is not in any gear, so we're not going to go anywhere. We're in that neutral position. We're not in a gear. So as we say, if we just let it go, it will naturally return back to that neutral position. And that's quite important as we navigate our way around the gearbox. But so as you can see, to move it to first gear from its position between third and fourth, you have to push against the spring loading. So you've got to push over in my direction towards the passenger seat. So push against the spring and then gently push it forward. And as you can see, it doesn't take much force. I'm doing this with very light finger pressure. It doesn't take any great test of strength. So if you're flexing your biceps to do this, or you're grabbing the gear stick really firmly, that's not really what it's about. You need a very, very gentle touch. But the key thing is we want to make sure that we don't misselect a gear. And so we have a technique, simple technique. So Caroline, if you put your left hand out, okay, yep, start it like that. So if you put your thumb up, good, just thumb up. And now if we wanted to take first gear, if you turn your thumb down, so point your thumb down, good, and now place your palm against the gear stick and push it gently across towards me and push it forwards. As you can see from the position of Caroline's hand, there is no way that can slip back out of her hands. Whereas in contrast, if you just let it go, Caroline, if I took that gear and I'm holding the gear stick this way, there is the potential for it to slip through my fingers. Okay, so Caroline, if you take thumb down and into first gear, and then similarly, if we want to come back to second gear, we're still pushing against the spring. So Caroline, as you can see, her palm is pushing against it. For any other gear, when we're moving this way across the gearbox, we're working with the spring. So instead of going thumb down, we go thumb up, and that brings our palm to this side of the gear stick. Excellent. Now the key thing again to recognise and to think about, and the other mistake people make, and this is something that we discovered, Caroline, when you were pulling out of a junction, do you remember? And yeah, you mistakenly selected third gear instead of first gear. And so it's really important, and you appreciate the consequences of that. Yeah. So Caroline pulled out, she was in third gear, she thought she was in first gear, the car bogged down and was chugging out. We were pulling very slowly out of a junction onto what was quite a major road. So the consequences of incorrect gear selection can be quite significant. So this isn't just pedantic driving instructor stuff. This is really, you know, fundamental safety stuff. So the key thing to remember is once you've come out of a gear, if you give it time, and we call it respecting the neutral phase. So if we're in second gear now, we just let the gear stick naturally find its way back to the neutral position, and then we select any other gear selection from that position. So rather than grabbing it and pulling it out and trying to force it into third gear when you might hit fifth gear by mistake, what we do, if we're in second gear, we allow it naturally to find its way back to this central neutral position, and then we can orientate the gear change from there. So if we wanted to go, quite unusual, but if we had been accelerating hard in second gear and we wanted then to block change into fifth, we would simply pull it across and push it forward. So key thing to do in terms of practicing in your own practice is to be able to go through the gearbox. Caroline, if you'd like to just work the gear, go so sequentially through the gearbox. So first to second, and then thumb up, third, fourth, fifth. Good. And so what we're aiming for is to be able to select the gear you want without needing to look down at the gear stick, because as soon as you take your eyes off the road and look at the gear stick, you find your steering will wander, which is clearly very dangerous. You're looking down at the gear stick rather than what's going on, and the car is wandering across the road. So it's crucially important that you develop an ability to select the gear you want without looking at the gear stick, and also know your way around the gearbox. So it's not just sequentially going first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. You may want to block change. So if we're changing down, if we've been in sixth gear for economy, we may want to do a block change from sixth to fourth, or even sixth to third. I'm having raised the revs first. But so in the first stages, just practice knowing your way around the gearbox from any gear without having to look at it. So that's thumb up and thumb down gear selection technique. Okay, so just to put that into context for you, we're going to take a short drive. It is an essential journey. We're going to take a short drive where hopefully you'll be able to see the application of the combination of fixed grip and pull-push steering, where it becomes bends become more severe, and also then the gear selection technique. So we'll just see how it goes and what we encounter on this drive. It's coming out of junctions like this when you do need, we're making a 90-degree turn here, so you do need quite a lot of steering lock at this point, and then quickly unwinding it. New road, new mirrors. So thumb down, taking second gear. Mirrors, signal position. We're in the speed phase now. Actually flow it in second gear, so no need to change the gear in that situation, avoiding an unnecessary gear change. The momentum's still in the car. Anticipating the potential for the door to open, but no, there's a delivery person up at the house there. Checking our mirrors on the way back in. Thumb down, second gear. The roundabout, we're going to be turning left first exit. So it's mirrors, signal, position. We're in the speed phase now, so we're on the brakes. I'm going to take a rolling first gear here because it's a closed view junction. Hand goes up to the top of the wheel, so we're ready to make our turn. Final check on that left-hand mirror. Pedestrian just coming on the inside there. New road, new mirrors. Eyes up now to the pedestrian crossing. The lights don't appear to have been pressed. So we're in a normal fixed grip position. Our intention is to turn left, so I'm checking my mirrors. Signal, positioning left. We're still in second gear. Gritter out, which you can just see, so temperatures are dropping off. It's 4 degrees ambient at the moment. We've already got the ice warning up. because if you remember, 4 degrees relates to the air temperature, so the road temperature will be a couple degrees lower. So as the gritter would suggest, the forecast is for falling temperatures this evening. Checking that left-hand mirror, checking to the right, flowing on. New road, new mirrors. Some cyclists to the near side. Thumb down technique into second gear. Our intention is to go ahead at this roundabout, so not signalling on approach. It's the second exit. There's our view. Left mirror, left signal. Scanning ahead now to the crossing. There's a pedestrian just pressing the lights. We're checking our mirrors. 30 mile an hour speed limit. Second gear to give us a nice progressive burst of acceleration once we get to the 50 limit. So checking the mirrors, looking well ahead. Now we can accelerate firmly and briskly up to the speed limit. And here we're going to block change into neutral, into fourth, gently bring the clutch back up. You can see the gritter ahead. Lights are on the cars ahead, so I'm checking my mirrors, and we can see there is a junction off this bend. So I'm now showing early brake lights to the cars behind, just in case they can't see the brake lights. Got the high adhesion tarmac. So we're in fourth gear now, but we're down at 30 miles an hour. So again, clutch down, into neutral, through into third gear, gently bring the clutch back up, having raised the revs just slightly with the accelerator. We're into the roundabout ahead, and our intention is to turn right at that roundabout. So we'll start our sequence. Mirrors, signal. Position is then across to the right hand of the two lanes. We're in the speed phase now, so gently on the brakes, getting the speed down. We then take gear, so thumb down second gear to match that speed as we drive onto the roundabout. Left mirror, left signal on exit. Come to a slightly more bendy section of road. So we're going to take our gear, third gear, flexible gear, ahead of the bend. So our hands are now back on the steering wheel. It's a reasonably tight bend. It's got a chevron suggesting it's tighter than others we've seen, but as you can see, my hands haven't actually moved on the steering wheel. Brake lights have just come on from the car that's just disappeared from view, so I'm curious to know what they've seen that we can't yet see. And I'm gently balancing the car with the gas pedal. As the wheel straightens, we get our eyes up, check behind, firm the gas up, but our limit point becomes the car ahead, and we've still got the slow moving gritter a few cars ahead of us. I've just seen a car turn off to the left, so there is a junction there, so I'm checking my mirrors. Maintaining a safe following distance, as we've already observed. Temperatures are low, so we're already down at 4 degrees air temperature. The summer tyres we're running on will be at the lower end of their operating and grip capacity at that level. So again, we're keeping, despite the fact the roads are dry, we're keeping a good, safe following distance, as is the car behind us, being driven very well. So we can just see the roundabout marker board, and our intention actually is to go full circle, just to demonstrate how we will use our pull-push steering technique in this situation. So we mirrors, signal, and position to the right hand lane. We're now in the speed phase as we start taking our early view, and we're going to take block from fourth into second, clutch back up, having rev matched in, so that's just a gentle application of the accelerator as you're bringing the clutch back up to match the revs in the lower gear. Left mirror, left signal, moving the car across, final shoulder check, we're in second gear, cancelling the signal, firming the gas, but our limit point becomes the Mini ahead. Up into third gear, thumb up, safe following distance. Again, thumb up, into neutral, into fourth, gently bring the clutch back up. We're warned, hazard warning sign of a crossroads. We've also got a slow moving vehicle coming the other way that's just turned off. So I'm scanning my mirrors in case anyone's turning in or out of that crossroads. And again, we can immediately see some hazard warning signs. A junction off to the right. Sign beyond that. Checking the right hand mirror for anyone on the overtake. And we're warned of a left hand junction, and we've got cars to the near side lane. When it bends in the road, so let's say we needed a lower gear for this, using the limit point analysis. So we take third gear at this stage, our hands are now back on the steering wheel, both hands are back on the steering wheel, and as we turn in, we gently apply some gas. So we're not looking to accelerate the car through the bend, just maintain the speed that would have been lost through the scrubbing of the tyres going against its natural rotation. Again, gentle application of the gas pedal as we turn in, but fixed grip steering here. At the roundabout, our intention is to turn right, so mirrors, signal. Position into the right hand lane. We're in the speed phase now, so I'm gently on the brakes, getting an early view through the hedge there to see what's going on, but being very aware of this Mini first of all. Clutch down, second gear. We've still got the momentum in the car. The Mini has gone. Pull, push. Left mirror, left signal. Final shoulder and mirror check. Wheels are straight, bring the gas up. Off the gas, clutch down into third gear. Clutch back up. Ease off the gas, clutch goes down into fourth gear, smoothly bring the clutch back up to national speed limit. So you see all of that relates to the MS PSL system, and it's just the timing of that system. Got the van in the lay-by, potential for that to pull out, so I'm checking my mirrors, I'm running through the system now. Taking a position of safety to the centre line. Van appears to be static, so I'm now easing back to a more central road positioning. We're warned of the school. There is no left turn, but there's clearly a junction that cars could be coming out of. Brake lights are coming on, and we can see the roundabout route board. Our intention is to turn left first exit at that roundabout. So I'm checking mirrors, signal. Position will be to the left hand of the two lanes. We're in the speed phase now, so I'm on the brakes. Gently but smoothly taking the speed out. There's our view. Take the gear for that speed, and we're gently going to flow on. The gap was opened for us. New road, new mirrors, cancelling the signal.